Welcome to the Hashimoto's Doctor Podcast. You're now part of a growing community of people determined to take their health back through education and self-empowerment. But because of the healthcare system today, we don't have access to the types of healthcare that we want. So we have to do things differently. We've got to do things smarter, and we do that by becoming our own advocates. This podcast will give you the perspective and thoughts of one of the world's leading Hashimoto's doctors. So let's get started. Hey guys, Dr. Shook here. Hope you're doing well today. I am always excited and thankful for the opportunity to talk to you guys and share more information, things that I think can help you with your health and really to just help you live a better life. So today I want to talk to you guys about toxicity. And in particular, I want to talk about mercury, which is a very ubiquitous environmental toxin that we find everywhere. It's something that has the ability to have numerous different effects on the body's systems. It is really implicated so many different ways. First of all, I want to talk about where do we commonly see mercury in today's world, because we know that mercury is a problem. So where is it? Where do we find it? Well, number one, and probably the most concerning source for me, is in dental amalgams. Now, this is something that, the dental associations are going to refute, and they have their opinions. I've seen literature and I've seen the research that I've seen, I think, gives us enough of a reason to be leery of mercury in amalgams. Here's the thing. Just put all the science and everything they put aside, right? Their arguments. If you take mercury, well, first of all, when they're going to put in a filling, an amalgam filling, which is, the silver fillings, when they're going to do that, they bring the mercury over. It's stored in a very container that has labels all over it about the neurotoxic effects. And it has to be handled extremely carefully. It is a very well-known and documented toxin that has to be handled with extreme care. So they bring it over. It's super, super toxic. They mix it with the amalgam. They put it in your mouth, and then all of a sudden, it's no longer a problem. It's okay, now it's in your mouth, it's fine. It's fine. But wait, it gets better. So if you get those removed, let's say for whatever reason it may be, but maybe it's not to have them removed because you just think that they're bad, which I would completely agree with that. But let's say you've got a cavity or something and they have to remove the part of the filling or something, right? So they have to take some of it out. Well, once it's removed from your mouth, it's considered extremely toxic again. It's not, only when it's in your mouth that it's not toxic. Listen guys, when they remove these amalgam scraps, as they would call it, these pieces, they have to be submerged in a fixer solution or something that completely keeps any of the mercury gas from escaping. And it has to be the container has to be crush proof, and it's crazy. But when it's in your mouth, it's completely safe, supposedly, allegedly. It doesn't make any sense to me, because we know that, if you just go to YouTube and you just type in smoking tooth video, you'll see there's a guy that actually takes a tooth that has a filling in it, and he holds it. And this is a 30-year-old tooth with an amalgam filling, guys. So people say, well, the mercury is no longer a problem after, a short period of time. Well, this is a 30-year-old tooth. He takes the tooth and he holds it in front of a fluorescent screen. And when he rubs an eraser on it, it heats the tooth and mercury escapes into the air and you can see it. We know that mercury is in these amalgams, that it's there, that when you chew your food, it is released. If you have bruxism or, when you have grinding of the teeth, when you grind your teeth at night, right? The same kind of thing, that grinding of and friction can create a release of mercury. So where does that stuff go? It goes right into your brain, guys. It goes right up into the neurological tissues and into your body. This is something that is, I don't think mercury exposure is not being given the attention that it should. The same way that I think we're missing the boat on all these toxins in our environment. They're we just have these ubiquitous toxins everywhere, and people aren't aware of it because they're not able to measure them very effectively, in our bodies. And there aren't really very many commercial tests available. It's just a huge problem. So the mercury is a major issue. We know that mercury has numerous biological effects that are negative to it, and very problematic for us. So, for example, one of the things that we know about mercury is that it's, let me just say this. What we most commonly hear about mercury is that it's neurotoxic. So it's toxic to the nervous system. So to your nerve cells, your brain, and all the nerves of your body, and that it can affect fetal development, and all these things that we hear about. But there are a lot of other effects. It is nephrotoxic. It can destroy the kidneys. It is immunosuppressive, so it can suppress the immune system. There are some studies done in Brazil where they looked at these miners and people that lived downstream to gold mines, which still use mercury very heavily. If you've ever watched Gold Rush or any of these shows on TV, you'll see that, especially in like the jungle and the woods, they'll use it to in part of purifying the mercury, or not the mercury, but purifying the gold. And so it's still used heavily there. And so they did studies where they looked at people surrounding the mines, and then downstream, even hundreds of miles further down the watershed from the mines. And they found that there was a correlation, and it doesn't mean causation, but there was a correlation between higher mercury levels and malaria. So they were looking at it and seeing that they were noticing a trending pattern together with higher mercury and malaria. So their hypothesis, their theory is that these higher levels of mercury may be causing immune suppression and making people more susceptible to some of these pathogens like malaria. So, that's one thing. But, where we find these things is dental amalgams is one that I think is huge today. I think it's a major problem. There are, like I said, like gold mining, but really in like the United States and, countries where gold mining is not as prevalent, I guess, is really, you're looking like these energy efficient lights that are out there. They have mercury in them. There's the amalgams. There are pesticides and herbicides have you'll see these problems with them as well. So that's another argument for eating organic food is, you don't get the crops aren't sprayed with these pesticides and herbicides, and so therefore you're lowering not only your residue and exposure to the pesticide and the herbicide, you're also decreasing your exposure to some of these metals, and like mercury. It's a huge issue. Marine-based paints, so like paints for boats, they tend to be and have mercury mixed in them. And there are a few other sources not coming to me right off the top of my head, but those are some of the major offenders, I think, the ones that are definitely the biggest problems for us. Now, when you're looking at this, you've got to also understand that not just do we see that these things are immunosuppressive, meaning they suppress the immune system. Not only is mercury neurotoxic, kidney toxic, and it creates all of these problems. It also will create issues with not only the immune system and the kidneys and these issues, but it's also something that's been associated with not just those things. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit distracted, but it's not just those things. It's also associated with autoimmunity. Okay, so there were various studies. There are various studies out there that show higher levels of mercury. There was a correlation with increased TPO, which is thyroid peroxidase, and also thyroglobulin antibodies. Now, those antibodies are, those are whenever we see higher antibodies, those are associated with Hashimoto's and thyroid dysfunction. So there's definitely correlation there. There's correlation. There were some other studies done where they looked at people that had, to be part of the study, they had to have at least one amalgam filling, which is the type that's silver that contains mercury, and they had to have at least a diagnosis of one autoimmune condition. And they found that whenever they removed the fillings, that there was a trend of improvement of the autoimmune conditions and in the person's health and their symptoms. And so there were a few people in that particular study I'm thinking about. There were a few people that did not improve with removal of the amalgams, but these people smoked. The people that didn't improve also smoked, which is something I'm going to talk about in another podcast, which is that cigarette smoke contains a lot of metals like cadmium and arsenic and some of these other contaminants and things that are just terrible for your body. And so that could definitely be an explanation and reason. So I really wanted to share this information with you guys about mercury because it's such a huge issue and it's something that we cannot ignore. These toxins, these chemicals and metals in our environment are poisoning us. I truly believe that. I believe it's something that's a hidden epidemic that we're not aware of because it's so difficult to test for it. And so it's one of the things that, I've been searching for different ways to test for it. We've been looking for the best ways to detoxify the body because so many detoxification programs, I believe, are inadequate and dangerous because they don't truly bind these chemicals and metals once they pull them from the tissues. A lot of other detoxification programs just focus on supporting like a detoxification process, like the liver or the colon, like a colon cleanse, and that does nothing to address the source of the problem, which is the metals and the chemicals that are bound to and in your tissues that have to be extracted and pulled out. Okay? So we've got to do it a better way. And that's one of the reasons that, we're now doing our detoxification program with about 30 people per month that we take into it. And that's it. So, I'm working with people in groups and I still work with people, 1 to 2 or 3 people at the most per month doing one-on-one in-depth, diving in and getting very extensive testing done. I still do that, but on a very limited basis just because, I'm focusing on working with smaller groups of people and really helping them to achieve optimal health as much as possible. And so we're doing that a lot with our detoxification program. And if you're interested in that, you can go to nomoretoxicbody.com and learn, when we have our next webinar, our next enrollment will be available. It's always, our webinars are always a process of education about, these chemicals, testing that's available. A lot of times with our webinars, we'll give you an opportunity if you're interested in getting some testing done that's cutting edge for a lot of these problems with metals and chemicals. That's really, there are things like visual testing. If that doesn't make sense, just, go and attend the webinar, but it's nomoretoxicbody.com, and you can learn a lot more about that. You can also learn about the detoxification program that we're utilizing that is uses true binders and is just the most logical detoxification program I've ever been exposed to. It utilizes concentration gradients in the body. It's just fantastic. We've observed that it works really, really well. So we've got to do the right things to get these things out of our environment, out of our bodies, so that they stop creating all of these problems for, multiple systems, for our immune system, for our endocrine system, for our urinary tract and our kidneys. All of these issues that are occurring, our brain, for crying out loud, is being exposed to this mercury that is causing neurotoxic effects. That is a major, major problem, guys. And it's something that we have to acknowledge and we have to actively be working on improving. So anyway, I hope this has helped you guys today. I appreciate you hanging out with me. And guys, as always, if you found this useful, please do us a favor and share this with other people. Help us help other people by spreading the word and helping get this information to other people's hands. And please do, if you found this useful and helpful, and if you have a minute, go and review our podcast. Please go and review our blog, review our podcast on iTunes, on Google Play, and help us help other people and just help us spread the word. So I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you hanging out with me and listening to my rambling, even though when I get distracted by something. Appreciate you guys so much, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I look forward to hanging out with you again soon. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out behind the scenes with Dr. Shook. You can also talk with and learn from Dr. Shook through Facebook Live on our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook. Don't forget, you can also get access to our videos, guidebooks, and thyroid programs at www.drbradshook.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget one more thing. We can change the world one person, one family, and one community at a time. Until next time, remember, today is your day, and no one will tell you who you are and what you can be.